So let's do this. Let's go into entering the shooting bays. Right.
Okay.
I think I touched on it on Tactical Citizen TV regarding how your pistols or rifles are facing in your bag.
What is Tactical Citizen TV?
That's another channel that we have that is based on, from the consumer level, me being a gun owner, just trying to help out these guys here by informing you, the consumer to consumer,
Yeah.
of what needs to go on and safety and just really trying to be a safe and promote the 2A industry at the same time.
So if you support us, do me a favor, stop what you're doing. Subscribe, Tactical Citizen TV.
Tactical
Follow
Citizen
them on
TV.
Instagram, Tactical Citizen TV.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Same do better.
Let's
version.
run it up, guys. Come on,
Right.
we running up. We trying to help you guys, man.
Right. Entering the shooting bays. Okay, so whatever assigned bay, because I ran into this the other day, yesterday, matter of fact, when I had a training session with a friend of mine, we had gotten bays 2 and 3. When we get down there, there's somebody trying to load his weapon up in bay 3, and I politely told him, hey, look, man, we got bay 2 and 3. Oh, man, I just saw it empty, so I was just loading my firearm over here because, we came 3 deep, whatever. Okay,
That's not how any of this works.
that's not how it works, right? You get a bay, you stay in that bay. Technically, you're supposed to load the firearm in that bay. You can't load it firearm in a bay and then swap bays, because then you're technically bringing a loaded firearm out of the bay and into another bay, so even if it's for a split second.
And believe it or
I know
not,
everybody
people
tries to tell you, oh my God, it's just for
And they make a big deal out of that.
right.
Correct.
And it's just safety precaution. It's
Look,
just
follow rules. You before you got into the range, you signed a waiver. Follow the rules. So when you get called out on your bullshit, you cannot get mad. So if you assign bay 2, stay in bay 2.
So range bags getting into the bay. I explained it on the other channel, like I said. If you got pistols that are facing 2 different ways because the handles get thicker, so you try to make it where it's not bulging out and being crazy, or rifles that are facing 2 different ways because the stocks are bigger on the end, so you most likely facing them 2 different ways, so it doesn't bulge your bag on one side. Pull out the rifle or pistol that is facing downrange and put it onto the table or whatever mechanism they have for you to lay out your stuff, and then take the bag and simply spin it around and then pull the other rifle out so the muzzle is always pointed downrange. You think it's simple because you've already went through and the magazine's not in it. The bolt's locked back and slide locked or on the pistol, right? You think you've done all these precautions. What's one more precaution?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
And it makes the people who are in there feel safe, because there are sometimes in bays people who are just coming to watch and they're at the back wall,
Yeah.
right? And they're sitting there. And when you pull out a weapon, they don't know because they weren't out there with you with the salesman, that the salesman saw it was empty.
Correct.
They're just coming in seeing you pulling something out of the bag, and the muzzle's pointed right back at the back wall, even in their direction. Not even got to be at them.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you enter a range, right? 9 out of 10, most ranges are going to have an RSO. That's a range safety officer. So if there's any issues, the range safety officer should be there to stop it. But each individual should be their own range safety officer, right? Because the range safety officer might be in bay 1 and something going on weird in lane 11. And if you're closer to it, if you see something, you have the right to say something, right? It's your life on the line, so you should be able to speak about it. But you got to be aware. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to maximize safety.
Okay. Also, real quick, if you should have to, we'll get into all the failures and mishaps here in a hot second, right? And that's on the next little section here. But if you have to adjust the sight, work on the weapon for some reason, right, that unload it. I think it's a good practice to make sure that you keep your ammo not spread out right in front of you, but over to one side or other, maybe even off of the table. If you have to make a correction to the weapon, like you're sighting in or something like that,
No.
right? Take the magazine out, turn your stuff, sight it in. When you get a little more advanced and you have a lot more trigger discipline and hand placement and you know what you're doing, I think, micro adjustments real quick on the fly. Okay, cool. But new gun owners, you want to make sure the firearm's unloaded before you start tinkering with it.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once we talk about red dots. Chuck is a red dot fanatic. He loves red dots. I love red dots too. Irons, we shoot both. But once the red dot is connected to the firearm, it's part of the firearm. It's an integral part of the firearm.
Yeah.
So once you're touching and adjusting on it, we need to make sure that firearm's clear before we do that.
That's right.
Okay. So I think making any micro adjustments, or if you're uncomfortable trying to make a sight adjustment or something like that, talk to the RSO, range safety officer,
Yep.
and have them help you. They'll help you. And if they can't help you, they'll grab somebody from the shop
Yeah.
and come down, somebody who's knowledgeable and proficient and can help.
Absolutely.
Right. Other than that, I think down the range bays, it's really that. Just make sure your muzzle's always pointed down range. It's those safety rules.
All right. So there's one thing, right? So a lot of times people come on the younger people. They come on dates with their girlfriends, right?
Okay.
And they're doing a lot of videotaping, right? And then you have the girl. It's normally the girl who does this a lot, right? They turn around with the firearm, like, look, honey. All right, you just broke the 180, right? So part of the rule is to keep the firearm pointed down range at all times. And then when the RSO say something, most of the time it become an issue. But we can circumvent that just by keeping the firearm. You can take as many pictures and videos as you want as long as that firearm is pointed down range. We don't mind the videos and pictures. Hell, we do it too. But keep the firearm pointed down range at all times.
I think it would be a good thing for them to hear about the experience you had told me about the other day with the old lady.
All right, so I was helping a lady. I don't want to call her old, young, whatever. I was helping a lady.
A lady. My bad.
Yeah, correct. I was helping her learn how to shoot. I was giving her some tips, like we always do. And
You old bitch. I just got to say that just because you pointed the shit at my
Yeah,
partner.
I know.
But I don't mean it like that,
no,
man.
if you're a subscriber and you watch this video,
I got to be ignorant real quick.
Yeah.
That's all right. Go ahead.
no,
Sorry.
I was being professional now. This
Yeah.
is my time to look at here, you old bitch. Don't you ever do no shit like that again? All right, but anyway, I was helping her, so we loaded the firearm. So I'm standing literally maybe 2 feet behind her, giving her instructions. And being a new person to firearms, she turned around, gun pointed directly at my chest, magazine fully loaded. She didn't have a finger on the trigger, but when I tell you I saw my light flash in front of my,
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to knock her across the bay, but I kept it professional because the one thing you don't want to do is panic. Because
Right.
when you panic, they panic.
Yeah.
Right? So I kept it professional, and I got out the way where I can grab the firearm and kind of push it to the side. But that's the one thing you don't want to do. I'm not going to lie to you. I almost saw you in my jeans, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I had came in the day it happened, and I could see the look on his face when he was telling me the story, that it's serious.
It's serious, man. Because in the
serious.
instant, that lady could have ended my life.
Because not even could she have accidentally pulled the trigger turning around on you, but even in you
Correct.
trying to get out of the way,
Correct.
if she got a finger on it, it could go off.
But that's why I didn't panic, right?
Right.
And some people not,
Right.
So some people automatically jump, and she jumped. So I knew not to kind of exaggerate it, because at that moment I knew she was new and she was already jumpy. But yeah, it's dangerous, man.
Can I let them know what our philosophy is on that?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Chuck and I have, we share the same philosophy when it comes
Oh,
to
wait,
somebody.
hold on. Can I get a camera 3?
Oh, yeah, here you go.
All right, this is my philosophy. If you fucking shoot me, I'm shooting your ass back. I plan to leave with the same amount of holes I came with. So let's please play fair, all right? Thank you, my good man.
Yeah, I'm shooting you in your fucking shit. If
Yeah.
I don't, if it's not a fatal mortal wound, I'm digging you in.
I don't give a fuck if it's fatal now. I'm still getting one off. Fuck that. I'm not going out like that. I survived most of my life in Brownsville, Brooklyn. I ain't come to Georgia to be killed by some fucking 50-year-old lady who can't keep a finger off the trigger.
Right. Yeah,
Fuck
that's
that.
right. That's right. Okay, so let's get into. Well, we kind of did that. The do's and don'ts of muzzle direction downrange, loading and unloading the firearm. I think we can get into that, loading and unloading the firearm. We kind of did the do's and don'ts of the muzzle, with the range bag and stuff like
Let's
that.
talk about it.
Now that same thing with the range bag pulling the weapon out applies to the story he just talked about. Once the weapon is loaded, you definitely don't want to point it backwards out of the range. So we do things in terms of degrees, even from long range shooting all the way down to the pistol bays, of saying, hey, look, you've got about a 60-degree window that muzzle needs to be pointed. Right, because there's walls on each side of the bay. Right, you got about 60 degrees. Just because there's a wall, let me tell you guys, just because there's a wall right beside you, that don't mean it's fucking bulletproof.
And I don't mean shoot it.
Right. Okay, so if I'm looking at the gun sideways, there's somebody right there. Okay, through the wall. So one of the tenets to gun safety is be sure of your target and what's beyond it. Okay. Now, just because it looks like a fancy wall, that does not mean that it's bulletproof or any type of reinforced anything.
Can I get 3?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Bow.
So in other words, what he's saying is that if you're on lane number 4, you should not be fucking shooting targets on lane number 2. Right? Keep the firearm pointed straight at all times. We won't have this issue. Thank you.
Okay, so it's you're playing with people's lives.
Correct. And
Right?
your own life.
It's like drinking and driving, right? At a certain point, one drink or whatever like that. We understand there's a limit and all that stuff there, but perpetually, habitually going over the limit and then risking it. At some point, something's going to happen. Accident, curb, some type of fatality, whatever. It could be something as simple as blowing a tire out. I'm not saying that you detrimental to somebody every time. Shit, I used to be young. I used to do that dumb shit too. All right, leaving out the club. So it is what it is. Let's talk about stance, grip, alignment, target distance, trigger manipulation.
Right. So this is personal to a lot of people because I'm a firearm instructor, so as well as you, right?
Yep.
So when you teaching, tell me how do you teach stance to somebody? Because I'm sure we probably come at this from 2 different perspectives.
I give them an option between isosceles and the Weaver stance, like whatever's more comfortable to you. Because when it comes down to it, my philosophy is the same as yours. Is about that front sight staying still while you're manipulating the trigger.
Okay.
At certain times, guess what? If I'm in the bed and somebody busting, I'm laying down. I can't practice that in the range.
Yep.
Right? Or I'm asleep on the couch. Or I'm sitting down in front of the TV. Like there's different scenarios that stance is not going to come into play at some point.
So when I'm practicing, when I'm teaching, stance is maybe one. And I know somebody gonna get on here and be like, "Well, that's fucking stupid. Why wouldn't you teach?" Stance is probably one of the last things I will implement. Who knows how you're gonna be standing in that moment, right? You might be pressed up against a barricade, a barrier. We don't know, right? You might be in a bed. You just don't know, right? Pull a trigger without moving the front sight.
I'll say this about stance. Upper body is the only thing I really concern myself with, and that's not leaning back over your hips, but leaning into the fight, and that's about it. And feet and all
But
that
that's
stuff there.
but is that
For recoil.
But is that in a fire? Is that in a static range, or is that in real life? So here's the difference. Because to me, when you had a static range, right, that means nobody's shooting back. You're shooting that paper. You can get as comfortable as you want. You can do all these weird things. Outside, you might not even have a chance to get in a proper stand. Leaning back to me might be your only option.
Right.
Right? You might have to lean around somebody to get a proper shot. So how do you teach that?
Well, I would say that I would add that for new shooters leaning forward.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely.
Right, just for recoil, right, to soak up, to understand how to soak up. Because most of the time when they're leaning back, starting new, they'll go
correct.
start
And the
walking
firearm
up.
want to push you back anyway.
Right.
So here's what so for new shooters or any shooter, right? To me, the indoor static range, you can hone your skills there, right? You can learn trigger discipline, but if you really want to learn how to shoot, you have to get, at some point, you have to get to outdoor range where you're able to move and draw from your holster, do the things that indoor ranges won't allow you to do, right? Indoor ranges, you need it, right? Trust me, I love the indoor range, but to take your skill to the next level, you need an outdoor range.
All right. We can go, just to touch on that, right? Most of what's going to get you hung up in a defensive situation are the intangibles that you can't do at an indoor range.
Correct.
Which is what he just said, the draw, the moving, the slide step out of that, knowing which direction to slide step. It's a right-handed shooter, right? And which way to move left is his left is a further move than his right to here. It contorts the body. You know, you learn that after you get out there.
But that also goes back to episode number 2, right? Now that you got the firearm home, right? The dry fire practice, you implement a lot of that in your dry fire.
Right. Okay.